Falcon 9 took flight with 21 Starlink V2 mini satellites, 131 small satellites, and 2 lunar landers on a mission to the moon.
China launched its J-Long 3 and Long March 2D rockets.
New Glenn had its maiden flight and Starship made its 7th test flight, which turned out to be quite surprising.
And the craziest thing is, those launches all happened in the last 7 days.
This was by far the busiest and craziest launch week of the year.
And I can assure you that there is so much more to come in the rocket world.
I'm the Rocket Girl.
And I'm the Galactic Report.
Welcome to the first ever Orbital Roundup.
To start off this really busy week, we had our first launch-taking flight from China. The 10X Centispace 1 mission lifted off from Hainyang Spaceport on Sunday, January 12th at 10 p.m. EST. The payload consisted of 10 small satellites by the company Future Navigation, based in Beijing. The company plans to launch 150 other similar satellites to low Earth orbit.
Up next, on January 13th at 11:47 a.m. EST, Falcon 9 took flight on the Starlink 12-4 mission from Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. The payload consisted of 21 Starlink V2 mini satellites, of which 13 were equipped with the direct-to-cell capability. The booster on this mission was B-1080, who successfully completed its 15th flight before achieving a good touchdown on SpaceX's drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas. I have to mention that on this early morning, we had the first launch attempt scrub of the New Glenn rocket. It was intended to launch at 1 a.m. EST, but was pushed back several times and then scrubbed due to a, quote, vehicle subsystem issue.
Following the Starlink mission, we had our second Falcon 9 of the week. The Transporter 12 mission lifted off from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California on January 14th at 2:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Transporter 12 is a dedicated rideshare mission, part of SpaceX's SmallSat rideshare program. On board, there were 131 payloads, all going up to an orbit that's matching our planet's rotation around the Sun, called a Sun synchronous orbit. Following the second flight and landing of Booster 1088 on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You, all 131 small satellites were successfully deployed. We can compare this mission to the last Transporter mission back in August, Transporter 11, that launched 116 satellites to the same orbit.
Just a few hours later, we had our third and final launch of Falcon 9 this week with two very special payloads on board. The Blue Ghost 1 and the Hakuto RM2 Resilience mission lifted off from the historical Launch Complex 39A on January 15 at 1:11 a.m. EST. This mission to the moon carried two lunar landers. The Blue Ghost spacecraft was developed by the company Firefly Aerospace, also the designer and launcher of the Alpha rocket. The Hakuto RM2 or Resilience spacecraft is a multinational commercial lunar lander being operated by iSpace. The booster on this mission was B-1085, completing its 5th launch and landing, this time on the drone ship Just Read the Instructions. The two payloads are now beginning their 4-month journey to the moon. Farewell Blue Ghost and Resilience. Moving on to January 16, we finally had the debut flight of Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket. Standing tall at an impressive 98 meters, the New Glenn is a partially reusable two-stage rocket. The GS-1, or Glenn Stage 1, is powered by 7 BE-4 engines that are also being developed by Blue Origin. The payload on board was an experimental version of the company's Pathfinder probe. It's kind of like the Starlink dummy satellites that flew on the 7th flight of Starship. But that's a whole other story. Liftoff took place at 2:03 a.m. EST, just over 1 hour into the launch window. The launch was on hold twice in the countdown, the first time while they were chilling the engines, and the second because of a boat. Yes, you heard that right. A boat got into an off-limit zone during the countdown to launch. But even after this slight delay, New Glenn performed incredibly well on its first flight. The launch was simply stunning, and every step was completed nominally. Blue Origin then reached orbit successfully for the first time ever. But then things got a little overwhelming with the booster landing. Just 56 seconds into the entry burn, we seemed to have lost telemetry coming from the GS-1. We didn't have any views of a booster landing, and later on, Blue Origin confirmed, and I quote, "We lost the booster during descent. We knew landing the first stage on the first try was ambitious. We'll learn, refine, and apply that knowledge to our next launch in the spring. We're thrilled with today's outcome. But after all of this, here's to Blue Origin on their first ever orbital launch attempt that turned out to be quite amazing.
Starship Flight 7 launched this week, as most of us know, taking off at 4:37 p.m. Central Standard Time and carrying a payload of 10 dummy Starlink satellites. The first stage performed flawlessly, making it through max Q, most engines cut off, and boost back burn. We got treated to seeing Booster 14 make its way back to Starbase for a second catch attempt, and needless to say, it was picture perfect. Sadly though, shortly after that, Ship 33 had an anomaly and self-destructed over Turks and Caicos. Early reports suggest a methane leak and the ship was causing engines to shut down rapidly. After the last gimbling Sea Level Raptor failed, it resulted in a self-destruction because they would not have been able to control the ship anymore. SpaceX will be conducting an internal investigation to determine what happened and what needs to be fixed next time. The FAA will then review the investigation and determine whether or not more needs to be done. This is but a minor setback for the Starship program, and SpaceX will be using this as an opportunity to learn for next time. Nevertheless, excitement is always guaranteed.
Just a few hours after the crazy Flight 7, we had a second launch taking flight from China. The PRS-CE-01 mission lifted off from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center on board a Long March 2D rocket. The payload on this mission was an Earth observation satellite for SUPARCO, which stands for the Pakistan Space and Upper Atmosphere Research Commission. This satellite was launched at 11:27 p.m. EST to a sun-synchronous orbit. That's what concludes our first ever Orbital Roundup.
We hope you loved this video. Tell us in the comments if you have any video or content ideas.
You can follow my account on Instagram.
And you can follow mine on Instagram and X.
We thank you so much for watching, and never forget to just reach for the stars. I'm the Rocket Girl.
And I'm the Galactic Report.
See you next time.